Welcome back to the Sound of Southern Charm podcast. I'm Stephen George, your host. Today's guest on the show packs a few different items than what you might consider normal in their career suitcase. You'll probably find goggles, a beaker or two, and even a guitar. I met Dr. Taylor Mabe officially about 15 years ago while he was playing in a band that I was enthralled with. Still am, by the way. And he graciously accepted a request to be on the show. Thanks for being here, Taylor.
Thanks for having me.
My understanding is we both had the same first job. We both worked at a driving range. What do you remember about that experience?
That's actually not quite accurate. I spent a lot of time in a driving range. So when my parents divorced, I kind of became obsessed with golf. And my dad, I had one of my first memories of being at that driving range. I was there all the time. That's probably why some people thought I worked there. But my dad was trying to teach me how to swing a golf club, and I guess that after many failed attempts, I finally got it correct and hit him in the ribs with the golf club. Poor guy. Yeah. So, yeah, I never worked at a driving range. My first job was actually at a gas station, changing oil and working at the cash register. And my cousin Brooke also worked there. So the guy that hired both of us, that poor guy, I feel so. Me alone is all right. Brooke alone is all right, but you put us two together, it's never going to be good. But I learned some lessons at that job for sure.
Did you even know how to change oil before that job, or did you get like on the job training?
Oh no! I mean, I try to cover it up with tattoos and hair gel, but I'm a hick. my dad's actually a genius with that kind of stuff, car repair. I mean, he just does stuff that's way above my head. So I picked up stuff just kind of watching him. Being a mechanic is not in my skill set at all. So
yeah, I can change a tire, and that's about it.
Well, actually, maybe I misled you there. I guess maybe that was my first paid job. My first job was actually working in tobacco. So my family raised tobacco, and I remember thinking, like, why do I have to do this? Because my dad really changed the whole, I guess, landscape or the future of my family. So we were kind of poor tobacco farmers. My grandfather was a moonshiner, and my dad went to dental school, and so by the time I was born, he was doing well for himself. And
sure,
I remember each summer thinking, like, we got money. Why do I have to be out here and do this? But I did extremely well in school. I mean, all through grade school, high school, and all that. And I'm pretty sure it was because he always said, if you don't do well in school, this is what you're going to be doing every day for the rest of your life. So, pretty good motivation. I hated him at the time for it, but looking back, probably why I did so well in school.
You actually did a TED Talk a few years ago and discussed how working in the tobacco fields kind of set you on the path to become a scientist. And you specifically talked about your grandfather. Do you want to kind of explain what happened to everybody else?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, so my grandfather on my dad's side was a severe alcoholic, but somehow still had the wits about him to carry out his moonshine still. And I remember as a kid, he would be present and then not, and my family would tell me that he was going to college again. So that was lingo for prison. So yeah, he had a very, very bright man, very handsome man when he was younger. But yeah, I think moonshine and alcohol really had an effect on him. But I do remember priming tobacco with him, and he was one of those. He was just great kids. Would always pick, and like the sky's green. As a kid, you're like, no, it's not, and just stuff like that to mess with you. And
yeah,
I do have great memories of that. But yeah, I think maybe seeing him and his trajectory in life, and then priming tobacco, and then seeing my dad's trajectory in life, literally coming from nothing to doing well for himself is, you can tell a kid, do this, but I think seeing it maybe has a bigger impact.
Absolutely.
I was one of those kids, if you told me something twice, I'd listen, but if you told me 100 times out of spite, I would do the opposite.
A lot of people would say I'd probably them the same way.
Yeah, so then I guess I moved on to, if we're still on first jobs, probably the job that I had the biggest impact on me in regards to I loved it. It was fun. As throughout high school, I worked at the Music Loft, which is it was a chain at the time. It sold like guitars and drums, and it was a musical equipment store. And this one was pretty big. It was on Beatty Street, right next to Ziggy's, which was a nightclub.
May it rest in peace.
Yeah. So both of those buildings next door kind of have, I think back fondly on both of those places. I got to meet so many musicians because the bands would come and set up and do a sound check and then wander next door. So, 311 Fuel, Sunny Day Real Estate, Matchbox 20. I got to meet so many bands that way. And, being a 16, 17-year-old kid, that was just awesome to me. And plus, I was around people, I think I was the youngest employee there. There was a guy named Trey Childress that worked there. And then just several other people that were just brilliant musicians that would, I was a kid that didn't know much about music at the time, but they were happy to teach me this and that when time allowed. And then
Sure.
actually one of my friends since I was like 12 or 13, Jamie King, started working there. So that was my college for music, as I often say. So.
What do you think you took away most from working in the music store besides, getting to meet some of your idols and that kind of thing, but just from an actual work standpoint, what do you think you kind of learned? Did you learn like the art of the deal or, just working with people in general?
So, yeah, we were on commission there. So I learned, I never claimed to be a great salesman, but I learned just from watching and in my own trial and error what worked and what didn't. Nobody wants that used car salesman thing where you just
Yeah.
beat it to death. But probably the biggest lesson I learned from there is the removal of ego. And being in bands taught me that as well. I've always preferred a kind of a team kind of mentality. That place really taught me about teamwork and leaving your ego at the door for whatever's the best way to go. So
Absolutely. All right. My understanding is, you and I met when you were at school at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, but you actually started college somewhere else.
I did, yeah. So I think my summer out of high school was the last few months I worked at that music loft. Then I went to ASU, so Appalachian State University. I stayed there just one semester because I was juggling actually two bands at the time. One of them was a band called Waiting for Wednesday, and just driving back and forth from Boone to Winston-Salem became too much. So I actually liked ASU, but pretty much my whole life, you might see a theme throughout this story that I've always put music or band stuff first. It's been my love. It's always taken priority, and that changed. I guess that finally changed later in my life. But this case here from leaving ASU to go to UNCG was solely just to be closer to the band and to keep that going. But yeah, so when I met you, I was at UNCG.
What was kind of your plan when you were at UNCG? Because like you said, you were kind of really playing in a couple of bands. Were you wanting to stay into that musical vein, or did you have other aspirations?
Yeah, so pretty much all I cared about was music. My dad, again, with very insightful knowledge at the time, I didn't care for it, said, you can go to school anywhere you want if it's as long as it's in state and it's public. And he didn't say this, but insinuated, and I watched, there were people that were older than me that were getting music degrees that, were maybe working in places that the career didn't pan out as they saw it. So I did somewhat take my dad's advice and see that if I went into something, chemistry or physics or something like that, it's probably a much higher chance to have something to fall back on. Because I was smart enough to know that at the time, you're Britney Spears and people that really make it. I mean, I think that's like 0.01% of musicians.
Right.
So honestly, the chemistry degree that I got was kind of my fallback plan. And thank God I did that. I did chemistry just because it was easy to me. I mean, people would talk about how hard it was, and there was other subjects that were very difficult for me, but math and science always seemed to come somewhat easy to me. So my degree's in biochemistry for the BS. Then I went on to the master's chemistry program, and then eventually the PhD in nanoscience, and all of those are from UNCG.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to kind of reiterate what you said that, your fallback was a degree in biochemistry. And I personally don't know very many people that would call that their fallback. Like that's something that I couldn't achieve without a significant amount of help. I won't say I can't do it, but it would take me an extended amount of time to kind of figure all that out. So good on you. But as you mentioned, you didn't immediately go after your doctorate degree. How long did you kinda lay off before you decided to go back to school, and what did you do for work?
Let's see. So I want to say it was 3 or 4 years. So let's see, that would have been, yeah, something like 3 or 4 years. Moved to Wilmington and met a bunch of great people. I was thinking about going to the a PhD program. Most of the ones I was interested in, so my background being in biochemistry and chemistry, required, if I wanted to do engineering or some form of that, it required math that I had not been exposed to.
Oh,
I went to Wilmington, started playing in a Katy Perry tribute band, which,
nice.
for the people that know my background, Swift, which is the band I played in that had some regional acclaim, it's like heavier music. I guess kind of think Metallica, just to give you a broad idea of what we do. So then when I started doing the Katy Perry thing with white suits and lollipops and blue wigs, some of the Swift fans were like, "What is this guy doing?" But I love all kinds of music, so to me, selling out or whatever was said was actually quite funny to me. But yeah, so I'm in Wilmington. This is probably 2012,
Okay.
doing the Katy Perry tribute act. That was fun. Got to tour a good portion of the eastern United States with that. And during the summer, I would take these advanced math courses to kind of prepare myself for if I did go into some kind of engineering discipline. At the time, I was thinking probably NC State for something like electrical engineering or something like that. Well, I learned that UNCG and North Carolina A&T had built Gateway Research Park, which is a separate campus, and they had something called the Joint School of Nanoscience and Nanoengineering. Nanoscience and nanoengineering is really just the prefix nano. Your iPod Nano has that prefix because it was something small. But I mean, that's kind of what chemistry is, right? Chemistry, you're kind of playing with atoms and molecules and things of that nature. So it was kind of a good fit for me. And the reason I, looking back, would have done engineering is that I found that I was more intrigued with the application of science as opposed to just figuring stuff out for that knowledge. So yeah, so I guess in 2014 is when I left Wilmington and started that program. So in 2014, I started my PhD, and I loved that place. That Gateway Research Park was really the coolest things about that is, unlike a campus like NC State, where you have these toys in the engineering department, there's these instruments or toys in the chemistry department. Everything was under one building there. So a lot of exposure to instrumentation and things of that nature. But there's a guy, the dean at the time, Dr. James Ryan, who just had such an impact on me. He has 45 patents. He worked at IBM for a long time, but for whatever reason, we just clicked. And I spent a good amount of time with him and learned a bunch of valuable lessons from him.
Sure.
But he really pushed entrepreneurship and gave opportunities. There's a thing called 2 minutes to win it, which is like a pitch competition that has like a business idea. Entering that, I did it every year, but that first time really set forth a ball in motion for me. It's funny how just saying yes to one little thing really led to a complete snowball effect. And what I mean by that is that I entered this business pitch as a freshman in my my first year in my PhD.
Okay.
Did really well. I won that event, and the school newspaper published something about it. And then the local newspaper in Greensboro wanted to do an article. So they came and did an article and included some of the speech. Then there was a short snippet on one of the news stations here about that. And I think that or the newspaper article is how the people at TEDx found out about me. So they were wanting a science talk. So I think they had their lineup almost complete. And they approached the school as to how to get in touch with me. And it was somewhat of a dilemma whether I would accept it or not. It was such a great honor, but our PhD program, you have a qualifying exam.
Okay.
And if you don't pass that, you're not considered a PhD candidate. That test was the day after the TED Talk. So, so literally I had, I think, like 2 months notice, which was enough time. But I mean, people spend a good amount of time studying for this test because it's not just one subject. It's on all of the subjects you've had up to that point.
Sure.
So I went around and asked a lot of professors, what do you think juggling this? And a lot of them said, well, this opportunity I think is worth it. A couple of them said, I personally wouldn't try to juggle those two things at once. So again, I said yes and did both. And my mom is the only person I've heard say that she can tell, but she says, when I watch that TED Talk, I can tell that you haven't had much sleep. So apparently to her, I look wore down, but she's the only person I've heard mention that. But
yeah, moms are supposed to know that kind of thing.
Yeah. So a lot of people are interested in that TED Talk, but it comes back to just doing that first. If I'd never done that first little pitch competition at school, I don't think any of that would have came about. So I feel very honored to ask, and it went over well. And I did really well on my qualifying exam as well. So that's all I did was those two things: to rehearse for the TED Talk, because most people don't get up there with notes, so you technically have to memorize or know your stuff really well that you can just get up there and talk about it. So, but yeah, both of those went over really well, and that's a theme I kind of picked up on, is just saying yes to stuff. I'm sure you've seen that movie, Yes Man.
Oh, yeah, with Jim Carrey, that's right. But I think that, you were invited because you're one of these people, Taylor, that can really take a complicated subject and really break it down for a lot of people to understand very easily. It just kind of comes natural based on our interactions. So I kind of want to give you the floor a little bit here to really kind of talk about, after you got your doctorate, you did follow your mentor's sort of idea and you launched your own business. So tell us about 3i Nano and what your goal is right now.
Okay. Yeah. And to touch on what you said at the beginning, I think just the ability to tell a story. I mean, even as an adult, if I hear Once Upon a Time, I'm hooked. But yeah, nobody, even scientists, they don't want to hear these big terms. And I don't care how smart you appear. Like, can you tell what's going on in a concise, interesting kind of way? And I think that served me well. And that's probably a skill set I've picked up on being a musician. I never thought that my time on stage and being a musician would actually help me in this career path, but it actually has. I think being able to stand up and talk in front of people and not be super nervous and be somewhat comfortable, and like I said, being able to tell a story has really helped, because that helped the launch of the company. So so my last semester I had worked on this project with my advisor, Dr. Way. And my last semester, we decided to form a company. So the National Science Foundation, or NSF, has a program called I-Corps. It's to help early entrepreneurs see if there's a market. So typically what happens is you have these scientists that come up with really cool technology and it's really neat, but there may not be any use for it. So this program kind of give you, I think, $50,000 to kind of investigate to see is there a market. So for us, what we're doing, or what we are doing, is a device that will measure whether a person's having a heart attack or not. So when a person has a heart attack, there's kind of two flavors. There's something called a STEMI and a non-STEMI. And STEMI, a EMT can hook up an EKG and get a good idea. The other one, the non-STEMI, they really can't. And that one actually happens the majority of the time. It's about 60% of the time. So in rural places, this really has an application. So let's say you're in eastern North Carolina and the EMT shows up. You think this person's having a heart attack. You hook up your EKG, but you don't really get a result. So they're probably not having a STEMI. But you can't rule out the other flavor, the non-STEMI. So a little blood device would allow you to do that. And why is that important? Well, if you could make that decision right then, do I take them to the local hospital, which is 10 minutes away, which may not have a cath lab, or do I take them to the nearest, big hospital that has the capability to handle that. So a cath lab. So that those routing decisions would be vastly improved. You would save, it depends on where you are, but you could save quite a bit of time by just bypassing that local hospital and taking them directly to a bigger hospital that's equipped to handle those cases. That's kind of the technology we're focusing on. But what I did through that NSF Corps program is literally just go talk to hundreds and hundreds of EMTs to emergency room personnel, from ER doctors to nurses and we learned quite a bit. So I actually did two of these programs. I did the NSF Corps program that was local and one that was regional. And both of those gave us very valuable information. And then the next step, we wrote a NSF SBIR phase 1 and was awarded that last year. That grant cycle ends this coming June. So things have gone really well for us. COVID really did have an impact on us. So NSF did extend the deadlines for people because we work primarily out of the university, and there was a long time where we didn't even have access to enter the lab. So yeah, that did have a pretty big impact on us, but things in the lab were looking really good. So probably the next step for us would be to do a phase 2. That's what's going on with that. There's some lessons I have learned being a CEO of a company and never having that experience before.
Yeah, it's a sort of hit the ground running and see what happens
Yeah,
thing. There's only so much you can read in a book before you jump out. So what have you kind of picked up on as you've gone about this?
grades do not matter as much as I initially thought. I killed myself, to make straight A's, but hearing people that have hired a lot and now having that experience myself, I would take a B student that is pleasant to be around any day over a straight A student that is maybe not as pleasant to be around. Trust your gut. Every time I've had a gut feeling about something that's very right or very wrong, my gut's always been pretty much spot on. The one I really had trouble with was wanting everybody to like me. I've always kind of had that. And I guess coming from a band background and being used to that team environment, it was a real learning. That was some difficulty for me. It's like maybe somebody was doing something that was not ideal and other people start, bringing it to my attention, and just kind of being a badass, or, that having a backbone, I guess is a better way to say it. I wouldn't let people walk completely all over me, but that was a struggle for me. I was naive to think going into this that everybody was friends, everybody would be friends, and there would be no kind of anything going on. But and we've not had anything major, but it's just, I think most of it was my fault, just that not having that experience. And yeah, so that was a hurdle for me. The other thing, and I've always known this because I can do this, is just act, just do something. Like sometimes I would analyze a situation so much that it's like, just make a decision and roll with it. This even applies to music. Many times in music, I want to leave all my options open. So like I would like maybe record 20 vocal parts. And then I already know which one I like the best. It's like, well, maybe that one's better. And then you get at the end of the project and it's like, you've got all these major decisions to make. It's like,
Right.
just pick one and roll with it. If you hate it that much, you can just do it again. But
You've hit on a lot of things there for people that are listening in on this, and I think, you know, you made the point about, not being naive, and it's one of those and that I can relate to, as far as I don't look at it as naive. I just look at it as kind of hopeful. And I guess that's sort of the people pleasing nature that I have too, is that, we're just hopeful that everything's going to work out.
mhm.
And unfortunately, it just doesn't always work out that way. Because if you really look at it, when in life has everything gone the way you expected it to? So why would you think that running a business is going to be any different? Just because we're going to launch something, we're like, oh yeah, it's going to be successful. Well, sometimes it's not successful as soon as you want it to be. And I'm sure you've kind of run into this just with your phase 1 and moving into phase 2. It's not happening overnight.
Right. Yeah, that's well stated. Maybe there's a genetic component as well. Because like I said, my dad started his own business. He's a dentist, and I remember him telling me, 'cause we were talking about some of this maybe a year ago, and he said the first time he had to fire somebody, he literally almost threw up afterwards. It made him so, he didn't want to have to do that, but situation called for it. So
Yeah, at the end of the day, nobody's gonna take more ownership of your business than you,
yeah.
and that's unfortunately or fortunately, that's the way it has to be looked at. Nobody's gonna have the same kind of care that you do about it. Are there any books that you've kind of read during this process of becoming an entrepreneur, launching your business, that you can recommend to other people?
Yes. So I purchased so many books, and they were all good, but there are the ones that the National Science Foundation recommended for entrepreneurs. There's one called Value Proposition Design. There's one called Business Model Generation, and then there's one called the Start. Let's see, I can see it right here. The Startup Owner's Manual, and those are the three books that the National Science Foundation recommends. So the basically put for businesses that are early, like writing this long, in-depth business plan, may not be the most streamlined way to do that. So they have these things called a business model canvas. So those three books I think are great. One that I've read that I really like a lot is called Zero to One by Peter Thiel. I was really drawn to that book. It talks about change, vertical versus horizontal. So
Okay.
basically, think of vertical change as, say, from a pen and paper to a word processor, and then the other incremental type change is making something incrementally better. So maybe Goodyear's tire tread 5 years ago versus now. So
Gotcha, okay.
yeah, he really focuses on those big changes. What he calls 0 to 1 changes, or the vertical changes, is really providing forward progress. So I immediately think of all the internet boom and that type of stuff. So that book was really just cool to me. But for somebody starting a business, probably those other ones would probably be the best place to start. There was a guy named Justin Strawley who was kind of head of the entrepreneur department here at UNCG, and he said that same thing to me. I was trying to devour all these books, and he's like, "You just need to read this startup manual." So
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate the, recommendations, and I'll check into 0 to 1. That kinda makes me think of, a sign that I've seen every couple of months. It'll pop back up on LinkedIn or something, and it's basically 1%. Do 1% more or improve 1% more than you did yesterday. So if you sent out 10 emails yesterday, send out 11. Just that one little extra percent everyday improvement will show you the difference down the road. So, a month or 2 months from now, you can say, well, I've done X since that date, and I've improved and gotten that much more successful since then at whatever it is you're trying to do.
I'm not seeing that. That's cool.
So I want to take a quick break from the entrepreneurship and kind of jump back to your music career. I am personally thankful that your PhD is not taking time away from you being a guitar god. I saw you on stage, in the early 2000s, in the band Swift that you were talking about, and kind of met you that way because Jamie King, who you mentioned earlier, was selling some of the band's old equipment. And I purchased one of the guitars. And when I asked him, I said, so would either of the guys that play guitar in the band be willing to give lessons? Because I didn't know anything. I'd never touched a musical instrument in my life to that point and didn't know anything about it. And he said, Taylor's your guy. So he gave me your information, and so you and I started sitting down occasionally for guitar lessons. So I got to know you that way and started seeing you in your other projects, like Waiting for Wednesday, and kind of following you around like a lost puppy, I think sometimes. But you now have a new music project, and I'm excited that you get the chance to kind of tell everybody what it is and how to find you.
Yeah, yeah. So the Swift thing, I guess, has been on hiatus for a few years. So it seems like every, I don't know, 5 or 6 years we'll do a show again. But I still love heavy music. I don't listen to it as much as I used to. I now have a project I would say it's somewhat 80s inspired. It's just pretty much rock, but with real pop sensibilities. Like the best thing I can think of is some of the early Cure stuff. They've always been one of my favorite bands. But the project's called The Call Girl, and thecallgirlband.com. But I have literally been writing songs for this project since 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, so the band I was waiting for Wednesday that we had previously mentioned, there was the other guitar player and that Todd Simmons is so it's literally just us two. It's just he and I. But there's a band that I love called The Midnight. Have you heard of them?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I've heard of them because of you.
Okay, yeah. So it's very kind of 80s kind of synth wave type stuff. Love it. Alla and I went to see them. This was a few years ago. They probably increased their stage show then, but it was literally just them two and a saxophone player on stage. And I love
Nice.
them. Don't want to say anything negative about them, but it just wasn't the same impact as having a drummer and like a rock lineup.
Sure.
A
Yeah.
boom bass and two guitars. So I think live that we're gonna do a full band thing, but literally in the studio it's just us two. So I have a slight addiction to music equipment. I have every toy under the sun in here, so it's really fun to get up and do that, and it's such an outlet for me. For years, I wrote songs about stuff that was going on in my life, but now it's almost fun to document stuff through the eyes of a character or through a different lens. So that's kind of where the name comes. People hear that name and like that's a little risque, but it initially started out as all songs about this girl who had a kind of unfortunate stream of events in her life, but it quickly kind of fell out of that. So there is still some of that, but there's also, there's just the song topics are all over the map. So there's one called Carousel, which is about these dreams I have and still kind of have these recurring dreams. Like Blues Lake, a place in North Carolina that I grew up wakeboarding and skiing, and the power plant that they had there used to have this huge smiley face. I don't think it had any function. I think it was literally just a cosmetic thing, but it was huge. It was this huge, kind of like a light pole with a big smiley face on top of it. And I think they tore that down, but yeah, I just had such fond memories as a kid over there. So
So if people want to hear anything, do they just go to the website or
yeah,
what do they need to do?
so you can go to thecallgirlband.com, and yeah, I'm kind of excited about it because this is there's no time limit, there's no pressure, so I've been able to literally just kind of spend as much time as I want on each song. So, and to tie this back into what we talked about at the beginning, I talked about I'd always put music first, no matter what. When I got to the PhD program, I was like, all right, this is the first. I didn't play music for those 4 years. I was like, all right, this time I'm actually gonna put the big boy stuff ahead of the music. So I'm glad I did that because otherwise I wouldn't have done all these extra things. I very fortunate in the fact that I did that 2 minutes to win it and won. I did the 3 minute thesis thing and won that. I was awarded this Entrepreneur of the Year. So all those extra things that I did, I wouldn't have had the time to do. So I think all those extra little things is really what helped me with this company. Just like I said, being able to tell a story and being able to talk. The presentation skills really helped me stand apart when going through that NSF program, the I-Corps program I was telling you about. Yeah, I think for anybody interested in starting a business, especially if it's technology related, the SBIR programs that the National Science Foundation and the NIH, National Institutes of Health, look into those. There's some funding opportunities and there's money available. So
That is awesome information for people to have. And, just so they know, they don't have to bring a guitar and an amp with them when they go present, I'm assuming.
no, that's required. That's required. And 80 spandex pants.
And your own lighting equipment, you have to run click ahead in between for every 15 seconds or so, change the lighting.
Yeah. So the program that I went through that, I went back and forth to San Francisco quite a bit. And we were there to talk to EMTs and interview people. And I was asking where would most of the EMTs be? And I kept hearing the Tenderloin district. And when I got down there, I understood why. It was definitely a very liberal place. Unfortunately, a lot of substance abuse, but we got to talk to quite a bit of EMTs down there. But it was for a country boy that grew up on a tobacco farm. That was very eye opening and colorful, to say the least.
Sure.
In some ways, sad, but in some ways, very. Those people aren't boring. I'll say that.
Well, but at the same time, it helps you kind of focus on what you're trying to do because you're seeing other people's problems outside of your own small bubble, right? And that's
Yeah,
kind of what all this is about is
yeah,
you can't know how to help people without going out and experiencing it.
yeah, yeah.
All this is super awesome. I hope people go out and check thecarlgirlband.com. Did I get that right?
You did.
Which will be out and for you to continue being successful in your business. And I so appreciate you being here today.
I thank you for having me. And before you go, that guitar God thing, I'm gonna have to get you to call my girlfriend and teach her how to say that. I'm gonna get her to address me as that from here on.
Hey, she's seen the video. She knows. She knows.
She's amazing. Yeah, yeah. But thank you. I really do appreciate it.
That's awesome. All right, Taylor, thanks for being here. And for everybody else listening in, stay tuned for the next episode of the Sound of Southern Charm podcast.